Well, hello there, and welcome to this quarter's briefing on the latest trends in TLS and SSL. And this is brought to our certified partners by us here at DigiCert. My name is Jeff Bartow, and I am a partnership and trust strategist here at DigiCert. And I'd like to thank you for taking time in your day to join us. Look, no matter what your role or your perspective is regarding data security, there's obviously more value to be gained from digital certificates than from mere encryption. Look, these certificates can also help confirm a customer's organization and legitimacy. They can demonstrate to users of your customer site that they're actually interacting with your customer and only with them and not with anyone else. And of course, they can also help your customers prove that they care so much about their site users' security that they're willing to invest in the most trusted and recognizable digital certificate provider out there. And that's in order to project fundamental trust in their corner of this very threat-filled internet. Now, we have an exciting agenda today, and that is something that's somewhat new for us here, and that is to have a chat regarding the latest trends in TLS and SSL. This is, of course, brought to you as part of our Partner Pro marketing program. Partner Pro is a compendium of all the things that we bring our DigiCert certified partners in our program, and that's across any of the metal tiers, so we like to call them. And we especially welcome our Platinum and Platinum Elite partners in attendance today. Now that said, the Partner Pro program, if you haven't gotten the full briefing, we do welcome you to do so, and I'll be talking about that at the very end of the presentation on exactly how to do that, so please stick around for that. There are really four elements to the whole Partner Pro program. One is to provide you with the latest in thought leadership, and that's where this briefing firmly sits. And also to provide you with the resources that you'll need to maximize your margin, your profitability, your revenue, and of course your leadership in terms of go-to-market, providing you with training and enablement, and then finally, as we work around clockwise, to providing you with all manner of product updates so that you can keep up to speed as to what's going on in the industry, which we provide today, and then product updates to show what we're doing and all the tools that you can use in providing the ability to project fundamental trust through our products and the usage and resale of those. Now that said, I'm not the guy who's going to be doing the bulk of the speaking today. It is Mr. Dean Coughlin, a trusted and longtime colleague of mine and everyone here at DigiCert. You know him from our previous incarnation under our former brand name. Dean, of course, has stuck with us and stuck with the entire industry, and you've seen him representing from all different standpoints. He, of course, works here as a senior director, but he has also been a chairman of the CAB forum. That's a CA browser forum, and that's where all the CAs, like us, and all the browsers, yes, those are the ones that you use all the time, and customers and so on and so forth, all get together and we argue regularly and then decide what's really good with regards to digital certificates out on the internet. Now, that usually centers around SSL, although there's new things about that, and that Dean's going to cover that too. But you're going to hear his sweet and melodic voice here in just a moment. And actually, going straight there, let's use that introduction to Dean to have Dean say hi. And Dean, I'm officially passing the mic to you. Dean.
Thank you, Jeff. And hello, everyone. Greetings. This is Dean Coughlin, and I'm talking to you live from the East Coast, the cold East Coast, I should say, here in the Boston area. And today's talk is going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the CA Browser Forum, what's going on in the SSL/TLS space, and talk to you a little bit about extended validation certificates. Quick word from our sponsor here. DigiCert has been around since 2003. This slide kind of shows you a little bit about the history of website security when VeriSign was established in 1995. But just in a quick summary, in 2010, Symantec bought VeriSign, and then in 2017, DigiCert purchased the website security business from Symantec. So actually now DigiCert is an owner of many different brands, from the original VeriSign, GeoTrust, Thought, and Semantic brands all are coming under the DigiCert umbrella now. And I think there's a few things to brag about here, being number one, the number one SSL provider for enterprises, having the award-winning customer support that we're very well known for, providing certificates for 80% of the Global 2000, and having a lot of foreign and U.S. patents pending. 28 billion connections every day is an astounding number of connections. So this is just a quick word about us. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the forum, what's changed in the CAB forum, talk about extended validation certificates, and then some statistics that I have on what's going on in the industry. I think we will have time for questions at the end, so you can type questions into your questions box on your screen, and Jeff will accumulate those and pass those along a little bit later. Okay, so first off, let's start really basic. I get a lot of questions all the time about the CAB forum, and they ask, well, what is the CAB forum? And I think really the right question here is, what is not the CAB forum? Because people assume that the CAB forum is a formal organization, and it's actually not a formal organization. People assume that it's a regulatory body, a supervisory group, an organization that can grant exceptions, and actually it's none of those. It's actually an informal organization of browsers and CAs that set standards for the publicly trusted SSL certificates that are used in conjunction with browser transactions. That's a very simple definition of what the CA Browser Forum is. People say to me, well, why doesn't the CA Browser Forum website have an EV certificate? Well, it can't get one. It's not a formal organization. They say, well, can we go to the CA Browser Forum and get an exception to this rule? Nope, you can't do that either because it doesn't grant exceptions. It just sets standards. And those standards are called baseline requirements. And those baseline requirements have to be followed by all publicly trusted CAs. Publicly trusted CAs are those CAs which have their roots installed in browsers. So if you're a CA and your root is installed in a browser, you must follow the baseline requirements. Somebody once said to me, well, I don't belong to the CAB forum, so I don't have to follow those requirements. Wrong. If you're publicly trusted, you must follow those requirements. So in the past, or most recently, the forum could only discuss and create standards for TLS server certificates. There was no other types of certificates that we could talk about other than TLS server certificates. But things have just changed, and it's all because of something called governance reform. And because of governance reform was a working group in which I chaired. It took over 2 years of work to get done. But the desire and the reason for the governance reform is because members of the forum really thought that it would be a great idea to talk about other types of certificates. It's the same people. It's the same CAs and the same browsers that are the CAs that are issuing these other types of certificates and the browsers that are consuming these other types of certificates. Why not have these same people be able to talk about other types of certificates? So you can do this now by creating what's called a working group, and anyone in the forum can propose a working group. And right now we expect some new working groups to be formed for SMIME or secure mail certificates, code signing, and possibly other certificates like document signing. And when you create these charters, you can specify who can join the working group. So it could be people other than CAs and browsers. For example, if it's an SMIME working group or a document signing working group, it's probably a better example. Let's say you have a document signing working group. A software vendor like Adobe could be a participant there because they make document signing software. So they would be an interested party or a party that has a stake in the game to participate in a document signing working group. So Adobe would be on the certificate consumer side of the fence, and CAs would be on the other side of the fence. So instead of just having CAs and browsers, we would have CAs and certificate consumers, applications that consume certificates. Not certificate, I don't mean end users, I mean applications that are using certificates to do whatever it is they need to do. So the first working group is the server certificate working group. That was formed by default when we created the new bylaws for governance reform. And we have some new leaders for the CAB Forum this year. The new chair is Dimitris Zacharopoulos from an organization called Harika. Harika is a association of Hellenic research institutions based in Greece. And the vice chair is now yours truly. I'm back in the forum as part of the leadership here. As I was mentioned earlier, I was a former chair of the forum, and I'm back as the vice chair. We also have different people that are heading up the server certificate working group. Dimitris is also the chair of that, and the vice chair is Wayne Thayer from Mozilla. And there's also another working group called the Infrastructure Working Group, and this is really kind of to handle the back-end minutia of the forum, if you will. And that's headed by Josh Purvis from Cisco and Damian Reynolds from GoDaddy. So a lot of people ask, can I get involved with the CAB Forum? What does it take to be a member of the forum or participate in the forum? And there's a couple ways you can do this. So first of all, the mailing list is public. Anybody can subscribe to the mailing list by going to these links. There's the regular forum mailing list, and there's the server certificate working group mailing list. You can click on those links, subscribe, and you'll be getting all the email and the lovely messages that go with those. But you say, no, I want to be more than just a reader of mail. I want to participate. Okay, well, there's a couple of options here. If you're not a CA or a browser or a certificate consumer, meaning an application that consumes certificates, you can actually participate in the discussions online by signing and submitting what's called an intellectual property rights agreement. This is a legal agreement that basically says if you participate in agreements, any ideas or thoughts that you might have, you will give the rights away to those as part of the discussion in the forum. So as a member in that category, you cannot vote in forum proceedings, and you cannot attend physical meetings, which we have 3 a year, but you can participate in online discussions. If you are a CA or a certificate consumer, you can join the forum by following the link here, and that allows you to attend meetings and to vote. So those are the ways you can participate in the forum. Let me talk about some recent ballots. Now, ballots are ways in which forum baseline requirements can be changed. So right now we have baseline requirements for server certificates, which every CA has to follow, as I mentioned. But if there's a mistake or if you want to make an update or anything like that, it requires someone to propose a ballot. And these ballots happen throughout the year, and there's a specific procedure and a voting period for the way these ballots are passed. So I thought I'd just summarize a couple of recent ballots that may be of interest to a broader population, maybe not. Number 12 here is server certificate ballot number 12, which deals with underscore characters. And this ballot just passed. And this requires all certificates that have underscore characters that have total validity of 31 plus days. These have to be revoked by January 1st. Some CAs were issuing these certificates. There was some confusion about whether or not the RFC allowed for these certificates to be issued, but this was clarified in this ballot. Now, if you have a requirement for certs with underscores, and there are some very, very specific applications that do require underscores, you have two options. You can either use non-publicly trusted certificates, so have a certificate authority create a private certificate for you with that underscore, or if you do need public trust and you do need underscores, you could use a wildcard certificate with an underscore in the leftmost subdomain as indicated in this example. So that's the most recent ballot. Prior to that, there was a ballot to establish a network security subcommittee. There are a set of guidelines on how CAs should be securing their networks, and that hasn't been updated in quite a while. So a group was formed to update that document. And lastly, there is a ballot number 13, which has just been announced today, in fact, on a CAA, Certificate Authority Authorization, contact property, and associated email validation methods. As many of you know, WHOIS is becoming more difficult to get information from because of GDPR and other privacy rules. And so this ballot allows for a method to allow domain holders to publish contact info via DNS, the domain name system, instead of using the WHOIS system, or in addition to the WHOIS system. and this will allow CAs to check the DNS for that information that they previously got from Whois. So we'll see if that passes or not. Okay, I'm going to move on to another topic. That's first topic was about the CA Browser Forum, and if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, next question, extended validation. I think folks on this audience know what an extended validation certificate is. Quickly, this is a certificate that has been, the company entity has been vetted thoroughly by the certificate authority, and because of that, the browsers portray that certificate with some special significance. Some show it as shown in this picture here with a green lock and green lettering. Others do other things. I'll get into that in a moment. And let's move forward. Okay, so what are some of the reasons why extended validation certificates are used by websites? Some websites see this as an anti-counterfeiting measure. Because it is distinguishable and you can examine that certificate, this allows people to get strong identity proof for that website. And I'll give you some more details on that a little bit later. Now, there's something called QWACs. What a name. This stands for Qualified Website Authentication Certificates. And this is something that the EU has put forth in a regulation called eIDAS. eIDAS is a regulation that was passed in July 2016, and it's a framework for electronic commerce in the European Union. And this framework provides for these things called qualified certificates, which actually were provided by the original law in 1999, but it expands on that law, and it introduces the concept of qualified website certificates. And these qualified website certificates are based on extended validation. So they build on what's already been done in extended validation, and they use that to identify sites that are qualified under the European regulation. I asked a customer, how are you using EV certificates? And the interesting response was, we use this as a corporate security measure to be able to spot fraud sites easier. We require all our sites to have EV, and when we find a site on the web that may be a site that is looking like our site, we can quickly tell if that site is real or not, because whether or not they have an EV certificate. So they use it as sort of a control, a corporate security control on their domains. Brand protection. This is another one that people tell me that they use it for. They like to have their brand distinguished and protected by EV. So large companies that have very distinguishable brands want to be able to protect those brands, and having an EV certificate helps them with protecting that brand. And then there's a whole bunch of things that we found out were use cases outside of the browser. There are other types of appliances or audits, compliance, firewalls that can look for EV and can actually consume EV certificates. And we actually talked to some customers that actually use artificial intelligence security assistants to look for EV certificates in their network or on their brands. So it was surprising, but I guess it's something that folks do use, and it's actually a really good idea so that you can see your sites that are using EV or not using EV. So we talked about the browser indicators. Here's the situation. These are currently the most recent browser indicators from a variety of browsers. Well, what can we find in common here? Well, let's see. Do we see a green lock? Here. Not at the top, no. Do we see green writing? Not in all of them. Do we see the company name in all of them? Everyone but the last one. So there's really nothing in common between all these different browsers. The top one is Chrome. Chrome has changed the look of their EV display. Yes, they still show the company name, but they no longer show the green lock. Everything is gray, and this is true for all of their certificate displays. They removed green from everything, and it's now all this grayish-black color. The only distinguishing factor in Chrome is the domain name. The next one is IE, which, I don't know, most people probably don't use anymore, but that has the green background. And then we've got Firefox and I believe the next one is Opera, and then Edge, and the last one, which is only showing the domain name in green, is the new Apple display, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. So we've got a lot of different things here: green bars, gray locks, full name, the domain name. It can be confusing. So why is this so hard? Why are browsers not making it consistent? And I think I have to agree with some of the browsers here when they say, look, security indicators are very hard to implement and they're hard to get right. And we're evolving our displays to see what's the right way to display this. Now, some people ask me, well, why doesn't the CA Browser Forum just make a rule that says, hey, if you got an EV certificate, you display it this way? And the answer is, unfortunately, the CA Browser Forum, in that forum, CAs cannot tell browsers what to do. Browsers can tell CAs what to do, but not vice versa. And that's the way it's been since day one. So we even tried to put something in the EV standard that said, when you see an EV certificate, make something green. And the browsers threw up all over that and said, no, you can't tell us how to display our browsers, what to do with our software. We're in charge of our software. So, unfortunately, we have the situation I showed you on the previous slide. And, when you think about it, when you learn to drive, you are educated on all the street signs that are out there. And, in fact, probably before you learn to drive, you're sitting in the car with your parents and you come to a stop sign and your parents hit the brakes on the car. So you know that red octagon means stop. You've had a lot of education over the years on what those signs mean. That's not the same case in the Internet and with browsers. You think about a child of yours and you're showing them how to use the Internet. Do you show them what security indicators mean? You basically show them how to go to a website to do their homework, maybe to get started, and that's about it. So there really is very little user education. Who should provide that education? Should it be CAs? Should it be browsers? Should it be websites? That's a tough question. And because of all these indicators are inconsistent, it makes it very hard for people to learn what they mean. And so they end up guessing most of the time. And I just showed you the EV indicators. There's also indicators for OV/DV certificates, which are also different amongst browsers. So I think it's important for browsers to evolve to a common point, but I think consistency is also very important here so as not to confuse users. Imagine if you went to a country that had a yellow triangle as their stop sign versus a red octagon. It would be very difficult to comprehend. Let me make an analogy here on security and security in money. I think most people know, at least from the U.S. audience and probably from the EU audience as well, that most money has security indicators in it. If you were to hold this $20 bill up to the light, you would see more than one face. You see Andrew Jackson in the middle there, but if you hold it up to the light, on the right side where you see the letter B, you would see a watermark with his face in it. There's also things around where the letter A is. There's a thin strip, a thread, that if you hold it up to the light sideways, you'll see that thread. Or on the back, you'll see numerous little number 20s there. So it's in there, and it's there. I may not look at it every day when I'm buying something or someone's giving me money. I probably don't look at those security indicators. But what if I'm encountering someone I don't know and I'm making a purchase, or he's purchasing from me? Let's say I'm trying to sell my basketball tickets, and I'm standing outside the Boston Garden, and I'm trying to sell these tickets for, I don't know, Celtics games are expensive. So let's say I'm selling 2 tickets for $500, and somebody hands me 5 $100 bills. I don't know this person, and we're doing a transaction on the street. I want to verify that this money is real. So I'm going to hold that money up to the light and verify that it has the security markings. And it's kind of the same when you think about EV. EV is there when you need it. You may not look at it every day when you're going to a page that you know. In this case, let's say I bank with Deutsche Bank. I'm going to go look to verify that I'm at the right domain, which I know is db.com. How do I know that? Because I go there every day. I use the site a lot. But you may not use the site, and you may not know that it's db.com. You may think it's db.de, which happens to be Deutsche Bahn, the train service for Germany. So that's not it. But EV has the characteristics like the domain name, which all the certificates have, the company name, which you see on the left. And when you click on that lock, you can see additional information such as where the company is located, and you can even examine the certificate even deeper for more information. So that security is there when you need it. So there's a lot of things that can be done to improve EV. The EV standard was developed more than 10 years ago. And as far as security standards go, it's very rare to have a standard that's been developed for 10 years and never been updated. So the EV standard can use some updating. And these are just some ideas. I'm not going to go through these. We have a blog link at the bottom of this page where you can read about these ideas. But these were ideas that we came together as a group and said, hey, what can we do to improve EV? What are some of the things we can put in EV certificates or solicit from customers to help improve EV certificates? So our team is going to be talking about these things with the validation working group of the CAB Forum to see if we can help move this along. All right, that's enough on EV. I've got some industry data that I thought you might be interested in, and I'll share that now. So think about browsers. Think about your browser that you use every day. What browser is that? I'm going to guess that a lot of people on this call are going to say Chrome. And that jives with this stat, which shows that Chrome, as of February last year, had 59% market share. Now, there's a lot of different stats out there for browsers. This was something I pulled from the Wall Street Journal, but different stats show different uses, and actually it's much different by country. But this is sort of looking at the global market share from one picture, Safari number 2, Firefox number 3, and IE number 4, and everything else is grouped in a category called Other. Now, why is that important? So, first off, there was a lot of changes made in the last 2 years around the UI, the user interface, in Chrome. And the reason for these changes was to encourage websites to move to HTTPS, to SSL. And so they started marking non-HTTPS sites with negative indicators. And since they started doing that, look what happened. More than 78% of the page loads in Chrome are now over HTTPS. And actually, this stat has improved to more than 80% since this was published. And in Android, it was over 68%, which is now over 70%. This was a stat as of last February, so it's gone up even more since then. So dramatic improvement in uses of SSL on the Internet. Now Chrome, here's some examples of what's been going on in Chrome. You may remember in Chrome 67, they plastered the word secure next to that lock. And, for better or worse, that was an attempt to show people that the site was encrypted. But unfortunately, I think the word secure means different things to different people. And when people saw the word secure, some people said it means safe. And that was not what was intended. But, I can see where that mistake would be made. So after they changed over a couple versions to Chrome 69, which came out in September, they removed the word secure, which I think is a good thing, but they also changed it to a gray lock. And this is the gray lock that you also saw in the EV screenshot I showed you earlier. So we've got now a gray lock with the domain name next to it. Now what the Chrome team is saying is they want to do away with the whole lock altogether, because eventually that stat that I showed you previously, where 78% of the page loads were HTTPS, will eventually be 100% at some point in time. And so when it's 100%, there's no need to show the lock anymore. Now I have mixed feelings about this. We've been telling people for the last 20 years, look for the lock, look for the lock. And now suddenly the lock is going to be gone. So this is going to require a tremendous amount of user education again, where we've already got confusion out there. I think this is probably a little premature. They say eventually on here, we don't know what that means. I think they're waiting to see some more empirical data, but we have to keep an eye on that and hopefully give feedback to Chrome about that. So here's an example of Chrome 70, which is the latest release of Chrome, and what they're doing when you come to a field that requires you to enter an input. If you're at a page that's not secure, like you've seen with the round circle with the eye on it where it says not secure, when you start typing in the field, you notice they start typing an M here. Notice what happens at the top. That not secure turns into a red triangle with red lettering. So that's another attempt to say, hey, if you didn't catch it the first time, and you're typing in private information, a password, a credit card number, whatever it is, it's going to try to warn you again with that red triangle. So I think this is a nice feature, and I think other browsers are doing something similar. Now, as I showed you in the Apple UI in Safari, they went from changing the company name, Apple Inc., in this example, to the domain name, apple.com. It still has the green lock, but you don't see the company name anymore. Now, why did they do this? I think it was because of the whole situation. You may have heard of the situation with Stripe. Stripe is a payment processor, and their company name is Stripe Inc., and the domain name is stripe.com. Well, a security researcher was able to register in the state of Kentucky a company called Stripe Inc., and they then went and obtained an EV certificate for Stripe Inc. Now, the domain name was not Stripe Inc., it was something else. But they got an EV certificate for Stripe Inc. in Kentucky. And so the user interface for the browser displayed next to the domain name, Stripe Inc., and then in parentheses, KY for Kentucky. And people thought that this was confusing and something that EV certificates should not be doing. So Apple said, okay, I'm going to remove the company name and put in just the domain name with the lock on it. So that's how their new UI looks. We'll see how this experiment works. You know, if we make significant changes to the EV standards to prevent something like that from happening, perhaps Apple will go back to what it was before. Another recent announcement is around certificate transparency. I think most people are familiar with certificate transparency in that all publicly trusted certificates should be logged in certificate transparency logs so that browsers or anybody else could detect misissuance of certificates. Apple announced that they are enforcing certificate transparency for all SSL certificates issued after October 15th. And this is going to affect all the SSL connections at the OS level on both iOS and the Mac OS. Now, if you have a certificate that has not been logged in a CT log, you will get an interstitial error when you go to a page using Safari, and this error cannot be bypassed. So essentially, your users will be blocked from going to your page if you have a non-logged certificate on that page. Why do people not log certificates? Primarily because they're using them for internal purposes. A website could be called merger.example.com. You probably don't want to have a code name in it, and you probably don't want that in a log so that others can examine it. So here are the options. If you do have some private names that you do not want CT logged, well, first of all, you can reissue the affected certs and put the names and relog them, or you can log the existing certificates and offer stapled SCTs in the handshake. But as I said, logging those certificates exposes the host names in those certificates. So you have to decide what you want to do here. And if it's something where you must have that name in the certificate, then you need to use a privately trusted certificate, not a publicly trusted certificate. And there's a link to the Apple page there. So let me give you some statistics from Netcraft on what they've seen for publicly trusted observable certificates out there. In the June report, I will update this, but in the June report there were 32.6 million certificates, and that's up 68% from a year ago and up 500% from 2 years ago. So dramatic growth in certificates. Why? Primarily because of what I said earlier, what the browsers are doing to force people to use HTTPS or convince people to use HTTPS. Now, most of the growth is coming from DV certificates, in domain-validated certificates issued by Let's Encrypt and cPanel. Those certificates represent 24.8 million out of the 32.6 million certificates out there. So quite a bit of growth coming from that area from websites that are using these free certificates. But in addition, the EV market is actually up 21% since June 2017. Now, let me show you the most recent numbers from Netcraft. And this is as of the November report. They're now seeing 45.4 million certificates out there. So, again, a dramatic increase in just 5 months. Let's look at the certificate types. So 94% of the certificates are DV certificates. Not a big surprise there. 0.7 are EV and 5% are OV. Now, this is just looking at all the certificate types out there. But I think what's even more interesting is let's look at the certificates being used to do on the traffic side. Oh, look at this. When you look at the traffic, which websites are getting the most traffic? OV is actually 49% of the certificates, and DV is almost 38%, and EV, which was only 0.7% of all certificates, is 13.2%. So the sites that are carrying the most traffic are using these types of certificates here. Now, what I thought is even more interesting is, what about e-commerce sites? What type of certificates are e-commerce sites using? So let's look at that. Wow. It's roughly split a third, a third, a third. So EV, again, only 0.7% of all certificates, is carrying a third of all e-commerce traffic, and the same with OV and DV. So again, statistics, you have to look at it different ways, and I think it's important to see the sites that are really busy are using various types of certificates in a much different picture than you saw from the total population. Now, DigiCert consists of the semantic brands, the GeoTrust brands, and the Rapid SSL brands, and Thought brands. So when you look at which certificates are used in high traffic sites, the DigiCert brands are actually the ones that are used in most high traffic sites. And in this case, you see Identrist on the right. Identrist is actually the Let's Encrypt certificates. Let's Encrypt and Komodo certificates are used by more sites, but sites that are having much less traffic. So I thought that was an interesting little statistic there. Now, this is an interesting graph from Netcraft that shows sites that were tagged as phishing sites, and the top two lines are certificates issued by Let's Encrypt and Komodo. And we go back to around July 2017, when Chrome started indicating that the word secure next to the lock. And what happened? Well, phishers aren't dummies. They took advantage of this, and they started getting free domain-validated certificates from Let's Encrypt and Komodo and others to put on phishing websites to show people that they were secure, because secure means different things, as I said earlier. And there was a huge spike up at that point in time. It sort of leveled off and it actually decreased a little bit in 2018. I'm not sure why, but it started picking up again. Now, with that word secure gone, and only in people that have older versions of Chrome, I expect that that'll taper off at this point in time. Quick word from our sponsor here. One of the things we're known for is taking care of our customers and our people. We're very known for our customer support. We answer our phone calls very rapidly, and we get back to people very quickly. We do what's right for security. We run our own CT logs. We're active members of many different standards organizations. And we innovate to solve problems. We spend a lot of money in our infrastructure, in R&D, and we're coming up with new verification processes to continue to be one of the fastest in the industry. And I'm going to, I think that's my last slide. Let me check. Yeah, that is my last slide. I just had a last quote from our CEO here, but I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff. And Jeff, you can handle the rest of this, and as well as pointing the questions over.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. I really appreciate you finishing all that content today. There was a lot to move through. And anybody who's ever heard Dean present knows that Dean and I have something in common, that is, we are really into the things that we talk about. So sometimes we have to say very carefully to ourselves, all right, we'll consider the audience here and slow down. And I get tripped up on that all the time. Dean did a great job at his pacing. And I want everybody to know, however, that regardless of our pacing and the depth of things, I will give you information in just a bit on how to reach out in case you want more, because there always is more. But if there's anything in this presentation today that you caught, please keep in mind that it's easy to simply replay it. Now, you can't do that while you're watching live. This isn't like your DVR. However, the very same link that got you here in the first place is the exact same link that you can use when you catch it on demand. And usually BrightTalk makes these available pretty shortly thereafter. So probably within a handful of minutes, that link will go live for an on-demand version of this where you can re-listen to the entire thing. Or if you want to share it out to anyone, you are welcome to do so. Just ship them that link. Now, of course, BrightTalk does require registration on the BrightTalk platform. We don't have any control over that. But it's a simple thing and helps you catch up on other things if you want to, or of course you want to pay sole and strict attention to just us. We wouldn't mind that either. Nevertheless, do feel free to share this. Do feel free to revisit it on demand. And for the future, now you know that if you'd love to catch the experience live, we want you here live because it's the way that you can ask questions and get those questions answered. Now, of course, if you do want to catch them, if you can't make the time, you're busy, you're traveling, whatever, we know you've got busy lives, the on-demand version is available. Now, I've got a bunch of stuff on the screen. Before I hit it, I do want to go and look out at a couple questions since we do have some time to answer those. Now, Dean, this is going to be hitting you kind of blind, but I hope you're prepared for this. You as a consummate professional, I know you can tackle that. One thing is that I've seen 3 questions roll in, one through the interface and one separately. I'm going to handle the separate one first, and this is going to be speaking, Dean, to your role on the CAB forum. And I'm going to read the wording here. It might be a bit out of framework or context here, but I love the wording here. So here goes, I'm quoting. Where's the teeth? If the CAB forum isn't a registered organization and their baseline requirements aren't law, can't sites and security providers just opt out of following them? Dean?
Okay, that's a great question. So let me explain it again. The law, if you will, rests with the browsers, right? It's their platform, and if they decide that you're not following the baseline requirements and you're not getting the proper audits, so the way it works is, as a CA, I have to follow the baseline requirements, and every year I get audited. And the auditors come in and they review everything that the baseline requirements say and more. And if they find a discrepancy, they issue a report that has a discrepancy in it or a nonconformity. All those reports go directly to browsers, and they require those reports to be issued every year. So they look for them every year. And if a browser decides that your report is not up to snuff, they can do a variety of things. Everything from a minor scolding, if you will, a public scolding, to a complete distrust of your CA. And we've seen that happen in the past. So that's how these things are enforced. And you have no choice as a CA. You have to follow these requirements. And in addition to the baseline requirements from the CAB forum, you as a CA are subject to a variety of other rules. For example, WebTrust has a set of criteria. The browsers have their own root program rules, and each one is different. So when you look at Microsoft, Apple, Mozilla, all of these have their own set of rules and requirements, Chrome, that you must follow, and they're not all the same. So as a compliance manager in a CA, you've got on your desk all these different documents, and all of them have checklists and requirements in there, and you have to follow all of those. It's a very, very complex and tough job. But, CAs have been doing this in a long time. They've been in this business a while, and so they should know how to do it. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, and I know where our bread is, or my bread is buttered and our bread is buttered here. Dean has been at this forever, and he said, you need help. That's what we do here at DigiCert. A lot of times people contact us, whether they're customers or our partners, and they're asking for help or guidance or perspective on things that aren't really a deliverable of the product or the platform, and that's cool with us. that's kind of our job in the industry. So we enjoy that. Do reach out to us. You'll see the contact information in just a bit. Do reach out to us because we would love that contact. That is our role and our responsibility, and we are delighted to stand up to it. Now, I do see that there are more questions that have rolled in, so let's get to that, and I'm going to call time on that in probably about, let's say, about 7 minutes here. So first one's coming up is a little technical, and it says, do you have any thoughts on 256-bit ECDSA certificates versus RSA 2048-bit certificates? Now, there's no context around that, but certainly the comparison is there. Dean, is there anything you'd like to answer on that?
Okay, probably not the right person to ask. I think elliptic curve is probably going to be faster than RSA from a cryptography perspective, and that's something that is being used more and more every day. I'm probably not the right person to ask that question, so I'm going to pass on that.
Excellent. Okay, there is a so to speak a computational tax that gets added when you've got longer keys, whether they're symmetric or asymmetric keys that are flying back and forth across our very crowded and public internet. I'm warning all of you. I'm about to quote Sir Mix-a-Lot. So you can look at strength of keys and ciphers and what have you. And while a 2048-bit key is long and strong, it's bound to get the friction on. And what I mean is that's a lot of information that has to be sent and received and computed and all at once, which of course that doesn't exist on the shorter key lengths of elliptic curve, either keys or what have you. So that computational tax, especially on a very busy site, very busy servers, does tend to add up. Of course, since everybody has the latest versions of everything and the latest and greatest hardware, that shouldn't be a problem, which I say with utter snark. Yeah, that would be the obvious difference that I would see. Now, I do want to check on a couple things here with other questions. A question came in about how far are we in researching about quantum computing. How will the new algorithms look like? What will the new algorithms look like, and when will they be available? I know we've got some information. I don't know how much we can share here in this venue. Dean, is there any hints or tantalizing you'd like to offer here?
Yeah. So the C8 Browser Forum isn't doing anything in this right now, but there are a lot of companies involved in coming up with quantum-safe algorithms. And you probably are aware that the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, has a competition going on right now in which I think there's like 66 different algorithms in the competition. And I heard that that list will be cut in half by the end of this year. And sometime next year, they will be selecting the finalists. Nonetheless, there are several well-known and not well-known companies developing these quantum-safe algorithms. And at some point in time, I imagine that the C8 Browser Forum will specify which algorithms they would like to use in certificates. The baseline requirements specify which algorithms can be used today. If it's not on the list, you can't use it. But at some point, they will specify quantum-safe algorithms. I just don't know when that will be.
Good. I think that's a good industry view answer.
And we have we've publicly announced a partnership with, at least DigiCert has announced a partnership with a company called Isara that is developing these quantum-safe algorithms, and we're doing some testing now with these algorithms in our systems.
Fantastic. And of course, as the title of this slide that everybody's staring at will come true on this topic, but wait, there's more. So by all means, let's have the conversation and stick around for that, but this is why you're partnered with us. I do want to check in on one more thing here. It says, I don't understand the context in the question as posed because there's Braille involved. But where something, how to warn of bugs. Dean, if you're seeing this in the interface, perhaps you have a perspective on this. Otherwise, I don't know how to answer that.
I think, well, I'm going to answer it the way I think it should be answered, and that is, somebody that is not in the C8 Browser Forum may want to contact the CA Browser Forum to let them know of some vulnerability or bug or something like that. And I should have specified that in the presentation, but that there's an email address called questions@cabforum.org, questions@cabforum.org. Anybody can ask a question to the forum. It gets answered by the question list manager, which happens to be me. And and if I can't answer it, I circulate it to the rest of the list, and we discuss it and provide you with an answer. But that is a public email that anybody can write to and get a response to, hopefully fairly quickly.
And while I kind of bristle at the you must follow what we decide as enforced by the browser stuff, I do absolutely welcome and admire the transparency by which anybody can go and observe and participate, as you mentioned before, in different ways of CAB Forum work. So that's pretty cool.
I also just want to specify quickly about the Chrome, because people were curious about Chrome and its EV indicator. And yes, as you saw in my slide, the latest Chrome indicators are, they still show the company name, but they don't show the green anymore. So there is still an EV indicator there. I think they're testing this right now. They're looking to see what kind of user feedback they're going to get from this. But this is as part of their evolution. They're evolving their user indicators, which doesn't always make sense, but it's certainly something that they're testing with right now. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and on that note, our neighbors here, literally our neighbors here from the office in Mountain View, they're Google. And they do put out leading things like this, and sometimes they're contentious, but Google does change its mind on stuff. And we see that in Chrome, where we've seen the www dot get stripped off, and then they're making modifications and kind of changing their mind on it, seeing how it works, and also other things that they've done, how to view the information of a certificate. It's a work in progress, and that's not promoting Chrome or defending Chrome. I am a user, certainly, but all the other browsers too, the main browsers. But I do know that they change their minds. So I wouldn't expect that this is the stake in the heart of EV and EV indicators as far as Chrome goes, because Google certainly does change its mind as to what it does in the Chrome browser. I'm going to call it a day here on the questions and answers, because we do need to wrap up and give everybody a time to move on to their next thing and get a cup of coffee before whatever is in their day at the top of the hour. So let's move on from that. Let's cover what's on the screen here, unless there's anything else that you want to say, Dean.
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. All right, so there's that. Look, everything that we have presented today is presented in transparency. We're big about that, and that's in order for you to understand the current topics and the upcoming trends in the SSL and TLS space. And by you, I'm not referring to Dean, I'm talking to you in the audience. But also to understand those topics and trends and the organizations and the perspectives that are guiding and leading them. And that's a lot of what's behind this today. We are doing this, of course, so that you can see what's coming way in advance of when it arrives, so that you and your organization can plan for and implement strategies and processes to prepare for and then handle them, or hopefully capitalize upon them. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of today's briefing, this briefing is just a small part of the 4 key areas of our Partner Pro program. That includes thought leadership, go-to-market, training, enablement, and product updates. Now, this briefing, of course, covers thought leadership. That's our ability to show you how we participate in that, but also your ability to lead, but it also touches a little on go-to-market and enablement. So make sure that you catch the other resources available to you as a DigiCert certified partner. And of course, they're all listed here, so let me step through them very briefly. This presentation, as well as all of our other webinars, are usually presented on the BrightTalk network. So now that you've got a login, you can go and check those out, and our channel there. That's our channel listed there in blue, brighttalk.com/channel/6331/DigiCert. You're going to find this on demand, as I mentioned before, so just share the link that you got today that got you here in the first place with anybody who missed it, or maybe if you want to catch it again later. There's also, I do a monthly threat briefing that's live and on demand, just like this one. But this one covers the month's news, and I do this on the last Thursday of every month, usually with my counterpart, Angelique, down in Cape Town. And we cover all the things that are impactful in the SSL and TLS space, but additionally the IoT and the PKI space. We also cover the financial impact of that. We have a few laughs in there. We cover some crazy stuff, and also a handful of good news too. So that is also available, and the current one is coming up just next week, but all of our previous ones are also available on the Bright Talk platform. That's been running for 3 years now. Now there is a partner version of that. And that partner threat briefing is a co-brandable MP4 that is available for you, our beloved partners, to wrap your branding around and then offer it as your form of thought leadership. Now, that MP4, as well as all manner of other things which are listed there right in the center of that page, like demand gen campaigns and collateral and assets and analytics and stuff to integrate with your email platform. Those are all provided for you, and they're complimentary. They're free for you right now as a DigiCert certified partner. And the way you get access to them is through our Zift 123 marketing portal. Now, we've got the link there right in the middle, and we do hope that if you have not signed up, you do, because we're going to continue populating that with all the other things that I mentioned in those 4 key areas. That's at digicert.zift123.com. And then, of course, a lot of our partners, anybody in the partner ecosystem sees that and says, "Oh, Zift, I know what that is." Well, yeah, that's our plot of land in that property. Okay, so definitely sign up for or visit the marketing portal, and you can utilize those assets. Last but not least, we do publish a product blog, so you can see exactly what we're doing, what we just did, what it means, and all the details. That's also listed in our product activity log. The 2 links are listed at the bottom. There are RSS feeds for the partner blog, so if you have an RSS reader, you can catch up on that. Now, let's move to the last bit of content here. And of course, just like that, we are at the end of this quarter's briefing. That means there's going to be another briefing next quarter on the latest trends in TLS and SSL. And this is, of course, brought to you by DigiCert. But of course, this isn't a one-way conversation, so we do welcome you to contact or follow any of us who've presented here, whether it's the Partner Pro program, from which this briefing was presented to you, or our esteemed presenter today, Dean, who you can follow on Twitter and contact him there, or me as your host, and you can follow me on LinkedIn. Please add me, and you can reach out to me there. I'm also one of the recipients of that partner marketing email address up above. You can reach out as appropriate here. The time to reach out is now, and it's time to project fundamental trust and capitalize upon that. Now, of course, parting is indeed such sweet sorrow, so I want to thank you again for sharing your time with us and for helping us or letting us help you be successful. So on behalf of today's expert, our very own Dean Coughlin, and on behalf of the Partner Pro program for our DigiCert certified partners, and of course, on behalf of DigiCert, the leader in digital certificate solutions for encryption and identity, goodbye, good day, and please do stay safe online.